Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmates. Today, I will going to discuss about the behaviorist theory and the cognitive learning theory. We are going to tackle if behaviorist theory and cognitive learning theory can be used in teaching mathematics. So let's start with the behaviorist theory. What is behaviorist theory? Okay, so behaviorist theory what was being proposed by B.F. Skinner, so yung best friend natin, or Boros Frederick Skinner, yun po yung kanyang full name, Boros Frederick Skinner. So si Boros Frederick Skinner is an American psychologist known for his impact on behaviorism. So siya po yung proponent ng behaviorist learning theory. In 2002 survey of psychologists, he was identified as the most influential psychologist of the 20th century. So si Boris Frederick pala or yes, B.F. Skinner, siya po yung pinaka-influential psychologist in the 20th century. So B.F. Skinner himself referred to his philosophy as radical behaviorism. He suggested that the concept of free will was simply an illusion and instead believed that all human actions was direct result of conditioning. So according to him, human behavior is shaped by natures, or one of the factors affecting the human behavior is the natures or the external factors. B.F. Skinner's theory of learning says that a person is first exposed to a stimulus. So una-una, yung tao raw ay na-expose sa stimulus or stimuli, which elicit a response. So naka-elicit na po siya ng response after exposed to a stimulus. And the response is being converted into a reinforcement. Kaya meron tayong tinatawag na stimulus, response, and reinforcement. This ultimately is what conditions our behavior. Tama. So yung tatlo po yun, yung stimulus, response, and the reinforcement, yun po yung nagbubuo ng ating behavior. To make this process easier to remember, meron po siyang pre-post na ABCs of behaviorism. Ano po yung ABCs ng behaviorism? ABCs of behaviorism refers to us as antecedent or yung stimulus, behavior or yung response, and consequence or yung reinforcement. Okay, let's start with behaviorism. Behaviorism, also known as behavioral psychology, is a theory of learning which states all behaviors are learned through interaction with the environment. Kaya meron po tayong tinatawag na external factors o yun po yung environment through a process called conditioning. Thus, behavior is simply a response to environmental stimuli. So, pag sinabi po nating behaviorist theory, it refers to behavior which was caused by our external factors. Skinner behavior theory was based on two assumptions. Firstly, that human behavior follows laws, and that the causes of human behavior are something outside the person, something in their environment. Tama. So yun po yung tinatawag na external factor. He believes that these environmental causes of behavior could always be observed and studied. Behaviorist pedagogy or behaviorism looks at the observable actions of students and assesses whether they are learning as effectively as possible. The central belief of a behaviorist is that students learn through reinforcement or constant feedback that tells them whether they are doing is right or wrong. So yun po yung tinatawag nating behaviorism. Okay po? Okay. In behaviorism, or yes, behaviorism, we are shaped, or the human behavior is shaped through environment. Kaya po nabuo yung reward and punishment. Stimulus, reward, and punishment. So, yun po yung bumubuo sa ating behavior. And it can be used or it can be observed in the classroom. Tama? Okay. Behaviorism is primarily concerned with observable and measurable aspects of human behavior. In defining behavior, behaviorist learning theories emphasize changes in behavior that result from stimulus-response associations made by the learner. Behavior is directed by stimuli. An individual select one response instead of another because of prior conditioning and psychological drives existing at the moment of the action. Behaviorists assert that the only behaviors worthy of study are those that can be directly observed. Thus, it is actions, rather than thoughts or emotions, which are the legitimate object of study. Behaviorist theory does not explain abnormal behavior in terms of the brain or its inner workings. Rather, it possess that posits that all behavior is learned habits and attempts to account for how these habits are formed. Kaya nga, environmental factors. Assuming that human behavior is learned, behaviorists also hold that all behaviors can also be unlearned. Tama. So kung yung human behavior ko no, can be learned, also, therefore, it can also be unlearned. Tama? And replaced by new behaviors. That is when a behavior become unacceptable. So kung unacceptable ng behavior, it can be replaced by another behaviors or new behaviors. It can be replaced by an acceptable one. A key element to this theory of learning is the rewarded response. Kaya po, when we are teaching lessons or teaching or discussing inside the classroom, di ba? If we are something having games or the students answered correct uh, response in our questions, we give clapping, right? That is a simpler form of reward. Yung pag-clap, yung pagbigay ng very good, good, okay? That is a simplest form of rewarded response, which can trigger the students to boost their interest and willingness to participate next time kasi, di ba, masabi yung students, ay, bibigyan ako ng clap ng aking teacher. So the students will automatically participate even if his or her answer is right or wrong. Tama? The desired response must be rewarded in order for learning to take place. The idea that behavior is determined by its consequences, they be reinforced or punishments, which make it more or less likely that the behavior will occur again. Kaya sabi ko nga kanina, Yun yung reward strategy or punishment strategy. Kasi if the students has given reward, he or she will automatically participate again, or yes, participate again in the discussion. Tama? And if you give punishment, automatically the students will change his or her behavior, or uh, especially if he or she misbehave inside the classroom. In education, advocates of behaviorism have effectively adapted this system of rewards. Okay, yun po yung sinabi ko kanina. And punishment in their classroom by rewarding desired behavior and punishing inappropriate ones. Rewards vary. Tama. Rewards vary, but must be important to the learner in some way. Okay? So, yung bibigay po ng rewards, it varies po. Kasi if you always give rewards to the students, even if his answer is wrong, masabi yung students, ay kahit mali na lang yung aking isasabi, or always na lang mali yung aking isasabi, okay lang. Kasi the teacher will always give rewards. Tama? So, rewards may vary depending on the participations or the response of the students. Okay. Example, if a teacher wishes to teach the behavior of remaining seated during the class period, the successful student's reward might be checking by the teacher's mailbox, running an errand, or being allowed to go to the library to do homework at the end of the class period. As with all teaching methods, success depends on each student's stimulus and response, and on association made by each learner. So according to B.F. Skinner theory of learning, our behavior are developed or conditioned through reinforcement. So yun po yung sinabi ko. He referred to this as a process as operant conditioning. Yun na po yung tinatawag nating operant conditioning. Yung merong consequence, ano pa, reinforcement, punishment, extinction, yun po ay pumapasok sa tinatawag nating operant conditioning, which was proposed by B.F. Skinner. But he referred to this as operant conditioning, with operant referring to any behavior that acts on the environment and leads to consequences. Operant behaviors or actions under our control differ from respondent behaviors. Skinner described respondent behavior as anything that occurs reflexively or automatically, such as jerking your hands back when you accidentally touch a hot pan. Okay? Tama. So, merong lumabas na stimuli. Say, for example, hinawakan mo yung mainit na kaldero. Di ba? Ang response mo is tatanggalin mo agad. Kasi, yung stimulus, mayroong pumasok na stimulus na nagsasabi na yung pan ay mainit. So, therefore, ang response ng human is tatanggalin niya yun para mawala yung init. Tama? Skinner's idea of operant conditioning influenced thoughts about child development, or that a child's behavior could be impacted through positive and negative reinforcement. It also contributed to the behavioral theory of personality, explaining that we respond in certain ways based on our learning experience or learned experience. So sometimes our behavior also depends on what we experience, or what is our experiences. Tama. Kaya nga sabi, experience is the best teachers. Kasi somewhat, our behavior can be influenced by our experiences, external factors. Okay? Okay, let's proceed to operant conditioning. Operant conditioning, also called as instrumental conditioning, is a type of associative learning process through which the strength of a behavior is modified by reinforcement or punishment. It is also a procedure that is used to bring about such learning. Expanding on Watson's basic stimulus-response model, so si Watson's pala, meron na siyang stimulus-response model. Pero si Skinner, he developed a more comprehensive view of conditioning. Yun na po yung tinatawag nating operant conditioning. Meron na pong consequence, meron na pong punishment, rewards and punishments, and extinctions. His model was based on the premise that satisfying responses are conditions, while unsatisfying ones are not. Operant conditioning is the rewarding of part of a desired behavior or a random act that approaches it. Okay, yun po yung operant conditioning. Okay, okay. Here is an illustration of what is an operant conditioning is. Say for example, in this illustration, the mouse pushes the lever and receives a food as a reward. So therefore, uh, the mouse will automatically repeat his actions to push the lever because he will always get a reward. So yun po yung tinatawag nating operant conditioning. So rewards talaga and punishment is a good strategy or teaching strategy that we can use inside our classroom. Okay, meron tayong tinatawag na contracts, consequence, reinforcement, punishment, and extensions. This is what makes an operant conditioning. Simple contracts can be effective in helping students or helping students focus on behavior change. The relevant behavior should be identified, and the child and counselor should decide the terms of the contract. Behavioral contracts can be used in school as well as at home. It is helpful if teachers and parents work together with the student to ensure that the contract is being fulfilled. Okay, two examples of behavior contract are listed here. First, a student is not completing homework assignments. The teacher and the students design a contract providing that the students will stay for extra help, ask parents for help, and complete assigned work on time. Teacher will be available after school and during free periods for additional assistance. So, yun po yung contract. A student is misbehaving in class. So, ito naman po yung scenario where students misbehaving in class. So, ang ginawa ng teachers, the teacher and the students devise a behavioral contract to minimize distractions. Provisions include that the students will be punctual, will sit in front of the teacher, will raise hands with questions, comments, and will not leave his seat without permission. Okay, those are the two examples of behavior contracts. Okay, let's proceed to consequences. Consequences occur immediately after a behavior. Consequences may be positive or negative, expected or unexpected, immediate or long-term, extrinsic or intrinsic, material or symbolic, a failing grade, emotional, interpersonal, and even unconscious. Consequences occur after the target behavior occurs, when either positive and negative reinforcement may be given. Okay, meron po tayong tinatawag na positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. What are these reinforcement? Okay, yung positive reinforcement is presentation of a stimulus that increases the probability of a response. This type of reinforcement occurs frequently in the classroom. Teachers may provide positive reinforcement such as smiling at students after a correct response, commending students for their work, selecting them for special projects, praising students' ability to parents. So those are simple examples of how you reinforce learning or positively reinforce learning. So, ano pa, yung mga example natin, giving rewards, clapping, saying very good to students for correct response. So that constitute a positive reinforcement. In B.F. Skinner theory of learning, reinforcement plays a critical role in behavior development. Reinforcement is any event that strengthens a certain behavior and it can be positive and negative in nature. So yun po yung positive, sinabi na natin kanina. Positive reinforcement includes events, trends, behaviors such as giving a child a reward or praise for cleaning the room. So that is a positive reinforcement. Ano naman po yung tinatawag? Okay. Meron po tayong tinatawag na negative reinforcement. Or negative reinforcement increases the probability of a response that removes or prevents an adverse condition. Many classroom teachers mistaken believe that negative reinforcement is punishment administered to suppress behavior. But punishment or negative reinforcement po is different from punishment. Kasi sometimes, pag nagbigay tayo ng negative reinforcement sa students, parang nami-mistaken ng teacher. Kala nila yun na yung punishment. But it differs from punishment. Negative reinforcement is reinforcement pa rin. Yun nga lang, in a negative way. However, negative reinforcement increases the likelihood of a behavior, as does positive reinforcement. Negative implies removing a consequence that the students find unpleasant. Negative reinforcement might include, first, obtaining a score of 80% or higher makes the final exam optional. Submitting all assignments on time results in the lowest grade being dropped. Perfect attendance is rewarded with a homework pass. Yun po yung mga negative reinforcement. Say for example dito sa number 1, kung 80% lang sa students yung nakakuha ng or higher, say for example nakuha 80% ng students ng mataas na grade. Tapos, optional na daan yung exam, final exam. Hindi po ganun dapat. Kasi, it differs from final exam. Paano masusukat yung capacity or capability ng students kung hindi mo sila iti-test lahat. Tama? Submitting all assignments on time results in the lowest grade. So, hindi ka lang nakapasa ng assignments on time, drop ka na agad. Or, bibigyan ka na ng lowest grade. Ikaw ng pinakababa. There are, mga dahilan naman. There are reasons why the students submit assignments not on time. Okay? Perfect attendance is rewarded with a homework pass. Okay, yun po yung mga negative reinforcement. Okay. Punishment. Punishment involves representing or presenting a strong stimulus that decrease the frequency of a particular response. Punishment is effective in quickly eliminating undesirable behaviors. So these are the example of punishment. Punishment. Students who fight are immediately referred to the principal. Okay, punishment yun. Late assignments are given a grade of 0. Okay, punishment yun. 3 tardies to class results in a call to parents. Failure to do homework result in after-school detention. Privilege of going home is removed. Okay, yun po yung mga example ng punishment. Punishment can also play a role in the learning process according to B.F. Skinner. Punishment is described as the application of an adverse outcome in an effort to decrease or weaken a specific behavior. Punishment may be involved presenting a negative reinforcer, such as spanking, scolding. So, yun po yung mga type of negative reinforcement or negative punishment. Scolding or the imposition of prison sentence, which some refer to as positive reinforcement. So yung iba, positive reinforcement na po. Or it can be involved or it can involve the removal of a positive reinforcer, such as taking away a favorite toy, also known as negative punishment. So, yun po yung punishment. Okay. So, here are, this table represents reinforcement and punishment comparison. So, makikita nyo po dyan that positive something is added, negative something is removed. So, if in reinforcement, behavior increases, tapos sa punishment naman, behavior decreases. So, kung meron tayong positive reinforcement, you add behaviors or you increase behaviors. Say, for example, smile and compliment students on good performance. Okay. The students will automatically repeat behavior again and again kasi he or she is complimented, being complimented. Negative reinforcement. Something is removed to increase desired behavior. Give a free homework pass for turning in all assignments. So negative yun kahit nagbigay ka ng rewards, negative pa rin yun. Kasi, so paano siya naging negative? Exempted na yung lahat ng students sa kanilang homework kasi they turning all assignments. Nagbigay ka na ng mga free homework pass. So, pinasa mo na sa lahat ng homework. So, that is a negative reinforcement. Punishment. Positive punishment, something is added to decrease undesired behavior. Or example, give detention, student detention for failing to follow the class rules. Okay, that is a positive punishment. Negative punishment naman. Something is removed to decrease undesirable behavior. Make students miss their time in recess for not following the class rules. Okay, those are the examples of reinforcement and punishment. Extinction. Extinctions decreases the probability of a response by contingent withdrawal of a previously reinforced stimulus. Example of extinctions are: a student has developed the habit of saying the punctuation marks when reading aloud. Classmates reinforce the behavior by laughing when he does so. The teacher tells the students not to laugh, that extinguishing the behavior. So yun po yung extinctions. A teacher gives partial credit to late assignments. Other teachers think this is unfair. So the teacher decided to then give zeros for the late work. So that is extinctions. The students are frequently late for class. and the teacher does not require a late pass. Contrary to school policy, the rule is subsequently enforced and the students arrive on time. Okay, what is the importance of behaviorism inside the classroom, or the classroom importance of behaviorist theory? When we use behaviorist theory in the classroom, can be rewarding for both students and teachers. Bakit? Behavioral changes occur for a reason. Students work for things that bring them positive feelings and for approval from people they admire. They change behavior to satisfy the desire they have learned to value. Ah, behavior changes or punishments, rewards, changes behavior in a positive and negative way. Kasi there are rewards naman and punishments that can change the behavior of the students in a negative way. Meron namang punishment and rewards na nag-change ng behavior ng students in a negative, positive way. Tama? Okay. They generally avoid behavior they, they associate with unpleasantness and develop habitual behavior from those that are repeated offline. That is according to Parkley and Haas, 2000. The entire rationale of behavior modification is that most behavior is learned. So most behavior is learned, yes. Kasi behavior is was caused by environmental factors. So it can be learned. If behaviors can be learned, they can also be unlearned or relearned. So yun lang po yung tandaan. If the behaviors can be learned, therefore it can also be unlearned. In my own teaching experience, this is my own teaching experience, I have found out that behavior goes unrewarded will be extinguished. Ano? So yung mga behavior pala na hindi mo nabigyan ng reward can be considered extinguished. Tama. So for example, the students give correct answer, then wala lang. The teacher proceed to the next questions. So extinguish na yon. Consistently ignoring an undesirable behavior will go far toward eliminating it. When the teacher does not respond angrily, the problem is forced back to its source, the students. The classroom strategy I have found successful are contracts, consequences, punishment, and others that have been described in detail earlier in this chapter of behaviorist theory. Behaviorist learning is not only important in achieving desired behavior in mainstream education. Special education teachers have classroom behavior modification plans to implement for their students. This plan assure for the students in and out of school. So, lagi nating tatandaan that we can use behaviorist theory in classroom management or in classroom discussion in a form of reward and punishment. So, that, so, pwede po itong gamitin sa ating mathematics teaching. Kasi, tama, kasi sa part ng students, parang mahirap daw yung math. Pero if we give rewards or reward and punishment system to the students, they can automatically learn mathematics in a simplest and interesting way. Kasi masabi yung students, ay, kailangan ko mag-aral ng mabuti about mathematics. Kasi si teacher ay bumibigay ng what? Nagbibigay ng reward doon sa mga nagbibigay ng reward doon sa mga behavior or positive behaviors. So the students will automatically give and give a positive behavior inside the classroom. So yun po yung behaviorist theory.